it's the hardest to go from zero, from nothing to something, right? And I think that's me. I'd like to take ideas that have never been done before, never been created. I'm the guy who will stay up 18 hours a day, no sleep, just grinding, a bunch of coffee and just seeing the idea through. I'm that spark.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 56 of the Andrew Deitch podcast. Happy Friday everybody. Hope you guys are having a great weekend so far. I really find myself listening to a lot of podcasts on Fridays and Sundays for some reason, and based on the numbers for the podcast, seems like that's the case for a lot of you guys as well. So if this is your first time listening, welcome. This podcast is a place where I have extended conversations with fascinating people, and those are people who go against the grain. They do extraordinary things. So like I said, if this is your first time joining me, I want to thank you for taking the time to check it out. There's a million other things you could be listening to right now. So it really means a lot that you're listening to this right now. And today, my special guest is George Yu. George is an entrepreneur. He's an inventor, founder, and among many other things, he is the man who created the viral product WindPouch. And you've more than likely seen the WindPouch in action. If you're not familiar with it, it's basically like a portable, inflatable hammock type thing, couch thing. And they've been featured in Men's Journal, GearJunkie, Inc.com, GQ, The Today Show, Huffington Post, and much more. And I don't think this ever came up during our conversation, but I am happy to say that I'm the proud owner of not one, but two WindPouches. And I love bringing them to camping music festivals. There's always a lack of comfortable seating at my campsite, and everyone wants to sit on the WindPouches. But during this episode, we talked about how he came up with the idea for WindPouch, the controversy behind the competition and the obstacles that he had to overcome, and his experience on the TV show Shark Tank, where he pitched WindPouch in front of the panel of sharks. And I don't know, you'll have to listen. I think he gets a deal. Based on the title of this podcast, you probably already know the spoiler, but it's a really cool story. Even knowing what happens at the end, it's still an amazing story. And this was a very, very, very value-packed episode. I think any aspiring entrepreneur needs to listen to this, and anyone who wants to be on the show Shark Tank definitely needs to listen to this, because he gave some very valuable information about that. But I also wanted to mention that I was originally connected to George through a company that we were previously in called Vima. We touched on that a little bit, and if you're a fan of my show, you probably heard me mention this company a lot, and that's because it was one of the most life-changing things I ever got involved in. And I can confidently say that if I had never joined that company, I would have probably never started this podcast or made half the amazing connections and friendships I have now. And I'm no longer affiliated with that company, but I just wanted to put that out there. And also, the last thing I want to mention before we jump into this is that right before we started recording, I had everything set up, ready to go, and George was like, hey, maybe you should plug in your headphones to make sure that the levels are good and everything. And I was like, nah, I've done 55 of these, man. I know what I'm doing by now. Don't worry. As long as I can see the levels on the screen, we're good. And needless to say, this happened to be a time where I should have probably plugged in the headphones to make sure it was working, because instead of the recording going from the microphones clipped into our shirts, only a few centimeters away from our mouths, the audio was actually recording from the internal microphones on my recorder that was about a meter away from our mouths. And luckily, I did notice that I'd screwed up early on. I was able to fix the issue about after a minute and a half or so, but it was still pretty embarrassing. And you better believe that on the last few podcasts, I have plugged in my headphones to make sure that the levels were good ahead of time. But anyways, I was able to fix all that in post-production to make it sound a lot better than it did. So don't turn it off after the first minute, just because the audio quality might not be up to par with the other episodes. But anyways, wanted to address that mistake and learn from it. So anyways, I'm going to shut up now and get on with this thing. Please welcome my friend, George Yu. All right, George, we're live.
Awesome.
So we're in George's apartment complex in the little study room area.
Right.
So if there's a cleaning lady in the background, it's okay. It's all part of the natural aspect. I like to think of also like when people are listening to the podcast, I want them to feel like they're hanging out with us. So if anything wrong happens or whatever, it's just part of the deal.
It's unedited.
Exactly.
Coming to you raw.
Exactly. I kind of like that. Like when I hear a podcast and something wrong happens, or like, you know, I like it when they don't cut stuff out, because then I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it was unedited. This was brought straight to you.
Exactly. Well, cool, man. So I feel like we've been, like I said, I think we were friends on Facebook for the past couple of years.
Right. Quite a while since
because
of Vima days.
Exactly, because of the Vima stuff. But I don't think we ever really like connected, like personally.
Right. At the time during Vima, there was just so many people, and everybody's adding everybody. And I guess like a lot of other people, I just accepted their friend requests and really didn't have the opportunity to really reach out. But I mean, I saw your stuff. My good friend Parker, he was on your podcast, so that's where I was.
Dude, I just realized I messed up something. Now we're live.
All right, awesome. Take two.
Take two. Yeah, so it's pretty funny. I might actually leave that first audio in there because it was recording audio, but it's just on the wrong microphones. But anyways, so like we were just saying, George, back in the Vima days, we were buddies on Facebook, but never really got to connect like in real life. Mm-hmm. And the other day, we were at an event put on by Austin Distal. And you were able to speak at it, and I was like, "Oh, George, like I remember this guy from the Vima stuff and Facebook." And I knew that you worked with Austin on like the launch of the WindPouch and all that kind of stuff. So I like got to see all that unfold on Facebook. Yeah. But I mean, now obviously it's like rocketed from there, which has been pretty crazy. But just so you know, I in the beginning I kind of like to go back a little bit and share like how you got to where you are, but. Just before we do that, if you can just kind of give like, I guess, an elevator pitch of like who you are and like what you do right now.
All right. Wow. Putting on the spot.
Not necessarily like an elevator pitch, but just like a quick synopsis of like, hey, I'm George.
My story.
Yeah. Just
cool. So I was a graduate of the University of Georgia. I graduated in 2013. At the time, I had finished up with a degree in biology, and throughout college, I don't think I ever really took a step back to really evaluate what I wanted to do in my life. I came from a family of immigrants. I'm a first generation American. My parents came from Taiwan, and their goals and dreams for their kids coming over was to be successful. But success in their eyes and success, in their minds, was being either a doctor, a lawyer, or an educator, right? Mm-hmm. There was no success as like a businessman. That wasn't like an accepted thing. But as a kid, I was always an entrepreneur at heart. I remember from an early age, I think I was around maybe 10 or 11 years old, starting my first lawn business. And that came out of a necessity because all my friends at school would get what's called allowance. And when I went home and asked my parents, hey, Mike, Bob, Devin over here is getting, their parents are giving them $20 a week allowance, well, where's my allowance? And the allowance I got was kind of a slap, kind of a beat down. But from an early age, I was really taught that money doesn't grow on trees, and you had to work for what you wanted. And I think that that's really what catapulted me on this entrepreneurial journey, even though at that time, early on as a kid, I didn't know. I was just like, I had to get money for an arcade game. I had to, get money to buy whatever I wanted to do. So at the age of like 11, I started my lawn mowing business. I started cutting like 1 or 2 lawns a week. It was just myself. And I was making like $20, $30 a lawn. And I started getting so many requests from my neighborhood. It was a pretty large neighborhood in Macon, Georgia, that I eventually had to hire my friends, my brother, and we had like a 4-person team at one time. I was buying lawnmowers at the age of like 11, and this went on to like I was like 15 until I got, I guess, a real job. I worked as a server, but at one point we were cutting 10 lawns, 15 lawns a month, and that was pretty solid for a 11-year-old kid making $500-$600 a month. And I was able to buy way more than my parents could ever give me, like all the ice cream I wanted.
Yeah, that's like Gary Vaynerchuk. Do you follow Gary V at all?
Yes.
Like he always tells a story about how like he, would sell baseball cards and all this stuff. He's like, if you have $1,000 in under your bed and you're 14 and you're not selling drugs, you're doing amazing. Like you're killing it.
Right. Yeah.
And so like any kid that like can make money like that, and you, like you said, you can go buy the ice cream you want, you can go do whatever you want. It's kind of like you're killing it as like a little kid.
Right. I was always a hustler. I mean, looking back, I hustled everything, mowing lawns, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Pokemon cards, iPods, whatever I could sell. Like, I think I got it from my dad because we used to have like yard sales like every other week because my dad is like, we just buy tons of stuff and then don't use it, and we end up like reselling it at yard sales. So I just kind of got into the spirit of buying and selling. And I've always liked that. There's just this feeling I get when I'm able to buy something low and sell something high. Yeah. Right. Or just make a profit. And then that feeling kind of turns into like sort of like a little addiction. Yeah. And I've just been addicted to it ever since. But continuing with the story, so when I graduated from high school in Macon, Georgia, I got accepted to UGA, and I got the Hope Scholarship. And when I went there, I had no clue what I wanted to do. I was undecided for the first 2 years.
Was that a pretty big deal to get into UGA for you?
It was. It's funny because I was actually in the Bahamas at the time. It was my high school graduation trip. I went
spring break trip.
Not a spring, but it was like a summer trip. Like one of my really good friends, he was a pilot, and this kind of ties into how WindPouch started. But he's my buddy. His name is Steven. He's a pilot, and he had 2 private beach houses in a private island in the Bahamas it was on San Salvador. It's a little tiny island, but we went out there for a vacation, and I had internet there, I had my laptop, and I kept checking because I had just applied to UGA. I was looking to get in, and I got accepted there. I remember like in a bar in the Bahamas drinking like a pina colada and seeing like this email they sent me when as soon as you click it, like there's like fireworks that go off in this email. It's like, congratulations, you're accepted. And I was like, yes. So that was a pretty memorable time. But yeah, that was a huge deal. My parents wanted me to they actually weren't as excited as I was. They kind of wanted me to stay in Macon. Really? Because they were thinking about it in a monetary aspect. Like it was way more expensive to go to Athens if I had went to school in Macon.
They did want you to go to school.
Yes, of course. Right. They did. But they wanted me to stay home. They thought it was a cheaper option for me. But I made it work. I had hope, and then I had other I was a violinist at the time. I had played violin for the last 5-6 years, and I had gotten a couple music scholarships. So I had more than enough money to go and pay for my tuition, my food, and my living, my room and board.
That's amazing. Because, for most people, that's just not the case.
Right.
For most people, it would be like either daddy's paying for it or I'm not going, or I'm taking out tons of loans.
Yeah. I guess I'm blessed and fortunate to have never taken out any student loans.
That's amazing.
My parents never kind of paid my way through college. I didn't want to ask for their help, and luckily I didn't need their help. But yeah, we made it work. Got into UGA. First couple years was undecided, and towards my junior year, I was like, this is the year that you kind of have to decide. They were like, you can be undecided the first 2 years, but the third year you have to be decided. So my parents kept pushing me, like, be a doctor, be a dentist. All these family friends, they're successful. They're in the medical field. So I decided to do dentistry. So I went into biology with the intent for pre-dental, and then realized that was too hard, or that wasn't what I wanted to do. So I decided to do something what I thought was easier, was with a pre-pharmacy intent. So I ended up graduating University of Georgia in 2013 with a biology degree and with a pharmacy intent. But towards my last year or last semester as a senior, I just became more and more, and this was when VEMA happened, and I think VEMA kind of helped me realize, or helped me put myself in an uncomfortable position to realize, man, like the road or the path that I was going down wasn't really what I truly wanted to do. Because prior to VEMA, I had never read any books. I had never done any personal development or had any sort of notion, or anybody ever tell me that anything you want in life you can achieve if only you set your mind and set your goals and set your belief towards that, right? It was only go to college, get good grades, go out and get a corporate job, work yourself up the corporate ladder, and retire with good benefits, right? I was never told, be the corporate ladder, create the corporate ladder, create your own kind of success. So Vima kind of showed me that. It opened my eyes to follow people that had who I really wanted. And in this case, my
I think we've got some cleaning people coming in, but we'll roll with it.
Yeah. So in this case, I guess the number one thing that Vima taught me was that you have to follow people that have really what you want. And in the case of my parents, I love my parents to death. But as far as financially, where I wanted to be and where my parents were, they weren't the best role models for that, if that makes sense. So, so pretty much, I just had to really make a hard decision. I love my parents to death, and I still love my parents to death. But it was one of those things where I had to just step back and say, hey, look, if I want to look at love, if I want to look at relationships, I need to follow my parents. They've been married for the last 30 years. They love each other to death, and if it's in love, I'll come to them for advice. But when it comes to money and when it comes to finances and wealth, they're not my number one mentors for what I was going for. So it was
a good way of looking at things. And I think Vima was really good at teaching people that.
Right.
Because everyone wants to look at their parents. It's like the rich dad, poor dad thing with like Robert Kiyosaki. Like everyone wants to look at their parents for all the advice in the world. And like, of course, your parents can give you unending knowledge about so many things. But like you said, sometimes when it comes to creating massive wealth, it's like if your parents aren't like balling out of control as far as money goes, like,
right.
You might want to like look at what other people have created massive success in that realm and follow their advice.
Correct. So it was a pretty tough decision to really look at my parents after graduating, after handing them the plaque on the wall, the certificate of graduation, and to say to them that this wasn't the route that I was taking. And I think in that point in my life I was kind of in like a dark place, because that kind of made it a little bit strenuous, like on our relationship between my parents and I. I ended up moving out, or when I was supposed to move back to Macon after graduating, but I ended up taking a year off and traveling all over the United States and the world just to kind of, I don't know, man. I've always been a traveler, and I thought it was a good way to kind of relieve some stress, experience some new things, clear my mind, because I just got done with 4 years of some hard biology and I kind of needed a break. So I ended up traveling, and first place I stopped was by California. I had a cousin that lived out there, stayed out there for a couple months, then went to, everywhere from Tokyo, I went to India, I went to almost like, I would say 40 out of the 50 states, like just road tripping. Went to all the music festivals, like was huge in the music festival scene, just traveled around, just tried to have fun and live a little bit. And throughout my travels, one of the recurring things that I kept experiencing was, whether I was couch surfing or having a layover inside of like an airport or anything, was just convenient portable seating. And I was always, everybody's been at an airport where you look around and there's just tons of people sleeping on the ground. And for me, that was me. I was the guy sleeping in between the armrests and the chairs right outside the terminal, like trying to like, or on the ground.
The best is when the seats in the terminal don't have armrests and you can lay across like four seats.
But those are very uncommon. Like all of them have armrests, and you kind of have to like duck under them and like position yourself awkwardly, or you just sleep on the ground, which is extremely dirty. But that was just kind of like a recurring thing that I kept experiencing and kind of wanting a need for, or having a product out there to be like that. So as I'm traveling, a year passes, I come back home, I reconnect with my buddy Steven, who's a pilot that I went to the Bahamas with, and kind of share some life experiences with him, kind of what I'm going through. And he recommends that I take up flying lessons. And he has an airplane that was located in Warner Robins, Georgia, and it was only like an hour south of Macon. So I went with him. I took a flight with him. Like, he flew me around. I fell in love with it. Just being up above the clouds, nothing but you and the pure blue sky. It was peaceful. It was something that I really enjoyed. And I'm a fanatic of cars, motorcycles, I jet skis, anything that has a motor in it and can go really fast. Like, I'm a fan. So that I immediately got addicted to it. And he was like, I'm actually selling my airplane because I'm upgrading to a 6-seater. So I'm selling my 4-seater Piper Cherokee. And I was like, well, how much are you selling it for? And he was like, well, since you're my buddy, I'll just give it to you as a good deal. So I ended up buying it at a really great price.
Dang.
And he flew it up here to Peachtree DeKalb, which is like literally half a mile from where we are right now, at the PDK airport up here. And I started taking flying lessons out of there.
That's awesome, man. I mean, obviously, buying a plane is a crazy thing. At that point, what were you, like even just for people, they're like, dude, how is this guy, like he's out of college, he was traveling the world. How did you, at that point, have the means to purchase a plane? Like, were you working a job? Were you doing your own thing?
That's a great question. And I'm sorry I didn't even mention this beforehand, but all through college, to help me pay for my college, I had started multiple online businesses. I had started an eBay store. I had started an online Amazon store. I had done drop shipping. A couple products notable products that I sold were electronic cigarettes. When they became very popular, like I was distributing them to many of the convenience stores here. I was selling them online on Amazon. So I had a solid online business, and I used websites like Alibaba.com and imported a lot of different products, resold them in person, like retail or online. So for the last 2 years, like starting junior year, because of EMA, because of that entrepreneurial kind of experience that I was taught, I started selling products online. So that created me pretty good income. I was making probably around $2,500 to $3,500 a month as a college student.
And then when you were traveling the world, you were just kind of maintaining those businesses?
Right. I did it all from online, especially, the buy and hold inventory, like at, I guess, my warehouse, which was like my college apartment or dorm, wherever I lived. I had to get rid of that, but all the drop shipping stuff I could still do remotely. So all I needed was just a computer connection, a Skype account to talk to China, and a PayPal account.
So drop shipping, meaning you were the one that was like the middleman,
right,
but you never actually touched any inventory.
Correct.
That's like the best business model ever.
It is. And 5 years ago, that was, it was still pretty lucrative. It's still pretty lucrative now. There's just a lot more people doing it because there's a lot of online programs where it's teaching people how to do it, and the market's becoming a little bit more saturated. You can still find your niche markets and niche products that you can sell, but it's not what it was 5 years ago. And just being able to see the evolution of where China and Amazon have gone, it's crazy. I mean, it's fast. If you don't really catch on, if you're not really aware of what's going on, it can be pretty easy to be left behind.
For sure. And then like so many people, they just think it's easy. They buy a ton of inventory or whatever, and then like something changes in the market, and then they're stuck with all this stuff that they can't move.
The turnaround for products used to be, you used to could have anywhere from 6 to 12 months on a product, right? Maybe even 16 months or 18 months. But nowadays, take the fidget spinner, for example. That was a 3 to 5 month, 6 month max type turnaround. I mean, you had to get in, get out quick. And I think that's what people are really doing now. They find a hot product, whether it's hoverboards or drones or the latest fidget spinner. That's a product you sell on Amazon for, you import 1,000 units, and those 1,000 units have to sell within 60 days.
I'm curious as to how many people are sitting with boxes and boxes full of fidget spinners in their apartments.
Yeah. They're not selling for anything now. They're very hard to sell.
Yeah,
right.
You have to have like a really unique one or something, because I mean, who's buying them?
Yeah, the fad really died down very quick.
Yeah.
It came really quick and it died down really quick. Actually, probably one of the quickest I've seen of a lot of products. I mean, the last product to die pretty quickly that I was a part of, that I imported and sold a ton of, in 2015 was the hoverboards. But they started having negative media attention, exploding batteries and things like that, and we had to kind of get out. But it was a perfect time because that led into WindPouch.
Nice. So obviously we've been like mentioning WindPouch, talking about WindPouch like here and there. So like when did that all culminate? So you said you were like doing the pilot thing, flying your own plane that you had just gotten, which is like, I mean, were you on top of the world? Literally you're on top of the world. But
yeah.
When you got that plane, was that just like, oh my gosh, like best day ever?
Great. I mean, it was great. I didn't have anything to do at the time. Like I had my online businesses. I didn't have a 9-to-5 job. So I flew every chance I got, and I knocked out my 70 hours and got my private's license in like a month. And
awesome.
That's usually like a 3 to 4 month type deal. But I just flew every day because, I mean, that just became like a passion of mine, and it still is. But I knocked it out, and during one of my flights one day, coming down from what we call a crosswind landing, where a wind's blowing either to the northeast, southwest, and you're having to land opposite or straight into it. Like if the wind's blowing 15 knots to the east and you're landing north, you're going to have to kind of position your plane a little bit to the west, like land a little bit slanted. So you're kind of what we call like a crosswind landing. So you have to land kind of sideways a little bit, and then you go straight. So I was looking, to determine which direction the wind was on the runway, and there was a windsock. And when I was looking at it, it was fully inflated, and I was like, wow, that looks like a huge inflatable couch, or like a huge inflatable beanbag or a sleeping bag or something. And that's when it clicked to me. I was like, wow, well, that's not being inflated by anything but the wind. Why can't I recreate something like that involves that kind of captures it, instead of just letting wind pass through like a windsock does, but somehow have the wind go in and seal it somehow, either through a zipper or some kind of closing mechanism, airtight sealing mechanism. And you could sit on it, because it looked like a big inflatable hammock.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
and so I got out of the plane, and it wasn't like one of those ideas that was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be like a $1 million idea. It was just kind of like, I could probably use that. I could probably do that. It wasn't like this aha moment just quite yet. So I didn't really touch on it. I kind of forgot about it for like maybe a week or two, maybe in a month. I can't remember. But there was one day where I was speaking to China, like my manufacturers overseas, and we were talking about how the age of the hoverboard or the timing of the hoverboards are kind of it's kind of slowing down. It's the time to start looking for a new product. And at the time, there wasn't a new product being introduced to the market that was really popular or anything like that. So I had brought up the idea. I was like, hey, have you guys have any experience or know any manufacturers that you could recommend us to that deals with inflatable products like air mattresses, sleeping bags, like futons or lazy boys or anything like that? And they said no. They were like, why? Well, I was like, well, I had this idea of an inflatable couch that you inflate not with an air pump or with your mouth like traditional forms, but rather kind of like a scooping mechanism, like you kind of just like a grocery bag, you just kind of scoop the air in and catch it. And they were like, well, send me what you have, send me some ideas. So I went on and we'll try to put something together. So I went online, I found as many videos as I could, like as close to the product as I could. So inflatable like rafts, things like that, even like making a video of me inflating a huge garbage bag, just showing them like how that technique would work. So just capturing the air and then like squeezing it tight and sort of like rolling it. And it took us about 2 to 3 months. It was actually a pretty quick prototyping phase. It took us about 3 months to get a working prototype, although the earliest working prototype that we had only stayed inflated for about 15-20 minutes.
And it leaked.
It leaked air, yeah, quite significantly. So we were testing different, materials, different types of plastics, different types of fabrics, and eventually, in the beginning of 2016, around January of 2016, we were able to come out with a product like that. But at the time, when I met with Austin, I remember showing him the product. And Austin being like, wow, this is a great product. We told you to jump on this. And I didn't know it at the time because I had never created my own product with China, was that you don't really tell China or any Chinese manufacturer anything without having them sign an NDA or anything like that. Even though I had done business with them for the last 4 or 5 years, these were the same manufacturers of mine that I had done business with, and we had a trust relation. We had a pretty healthy relationship. I mean, I thought the trust was there. And till this day, what happened was we started seeing our product on Alibaba. We started seeing our product in the Netherlands. There was a company that picked up our product.
Because I remember seeing one, I think it was called Lamzak or something like that.
Right.
Was that the like big one that popped before?
Yeah.
Okay.
So pretty much what happened was, and I mean, I take fault in it as well. I didn't really push the product. I didn't really push for the product as heavily as I should have, because at the time, like I said, it wasn't an aha moment. It wasn't like, oh man, this product's going to be like revolutionary. This was just.
So you were like the Winklevoss twins, and they were like Mark Zuckerberg or something.
Right,
like
exactly.
They stole the idea.
They created a viral video, and they uploaded it to YouTube, and it went viral. I mean, it had like 20, 30 million hits. All of a sudden, everybody was looking for the Lamzak, looking for this inflatable couch, inflatable hammock-looking thing. Nobody knew what to call it, right? And then at that time, when I showed it to Austin, we were like, okay, well, we knew we were going to be the first in the United States. We wanted to be the first in the United States, and we started doing research to see who our other competitors were at the time. And I remember the day, like Austin was in my apartment and we were on the computer and Austin like, hey George, you need to take a look at this. And he turns his laptop towards me, and I mean, it was probably the worst thing you can kind of have as an entrepreneur or like an inventor. He turned the computer monitor to me and it was a Kickstarter, or no, it was on Indiegogo.com, and it was another company called, I forgot what it was called. It was called like Cozy Bag or something, but they had raised like $4 million on Kickstarter within like 10 or 15 days.
And so, it was your product.
Right, it was the same exact replica. We didn't have, at the time, we didn't have any intellectual property on it. We didn't have any IP, any trademarks.
So for total transparency, it was probably the companies that you were working with overseas that had spoken with the wrong people or whatever.
Right, that's what I'm guessing. They still today have not admitted that they have. It could have been them, it could have been a worker that was developing it, because the workers over there are severely underpaid, and there's a culture over there where if you bring an idea to like another factory, they'll pay you equivalent of a year's wages, $1,000, over there, where if they're getting paid average 50 cents to $1 a day, $2 a day, having a $1,000 paycheck immediately for taking a product idea to another factory, that's gold to them. So I mean, it could have been that, it could have been a numerous amount of things. I don't like reflecting on it too much because it's a bunch of different possibilities.
Of course not. The what ifs and all the mistakes, like you've done well, so it's not like it was this big disaster.
Right. No, it wasn't a disaster. There's obviously things that I could have done differently, but it's one of those things where you live, you learn. Yeah. You experience, you learn.
Exactly. So after seeing these competitors, were you kind of like, you said it was like the worst thing that you could have seen?
Well, my heart dropped.
Yeah. For sure. I would imagine, because you've spent so much time like developing the idea and speaking with all these people, and finally
at the time the only effort, it wasn't as much that as far as like seeing like your idea or what you thought was your genuine idea being, I guess, knocked off, or somebody else profiting that much. $4 million is a lot of money to raise on a crowdfunding site. And it honestly, at that point in time, it was kind of like a make or break decision for me, because when I looked at Austin, and he can probably tell you the same story, like we kind of had this moment where our eyes kind of met, and it was kind of like a oh crap moment. Like, what do we do? Is it too late? I mean, $4 million is a lot. This company has a huge head start in front of us, and I kind of took the night off. I reflected on it, and in the morning I called Austin. I was like, no, let's push forward. We're gonna create that website. We're gonna create an online Amazon store. We're going to do this, and because this is something that I've been waiting my whole life to do, and I know I'm going to gain a lot of experience from it. I know it's going to make me a better entrepreneur because of it, and it's going to put me through some tough times, and it did. So we pushed forward. The first day we got on Amazon with the product, we were pre-selling the product because we didn't have actually any inventory. Inventory was already being produced, but I think we were like 30 days out. So we decided to go on Amazon and post pictures and videos of the products, create an ad, and do a pre-order.
And that's like a totally legit thing on Amazon. You can do pre-orders on Amazon. Okay, cool.
Absolutely. Cool.
Yeah, because I've heard of sometimes where people like will put a thing out and it's like they don't call it the pre-order, but they don't have any inventory yet, just to put some feelers out there to see if anyone buys it. But this was like, this is a pre-sale or a pre-order, and you guys blew it out of the water, right?
Yes. So within the first 2 days, I think we did around $59,000-$60,000 in sales. Wow. And we did so well, actually, that Amazon actually flagged our account as a scam or fraudulent, because we had taken so many orders without actually shipping, and we had so much money. So they froze all of our accounts. So we had like $60,000 in frozen cash inside of Amazon's, which we desperately needed to fund our next purchase orders. So that kind of put us in a bind. So I was frantically making calls. I mean, there was like a 10-step thing that I was doing. I was making calls to my family members, trying to raise capital, to cover the $60,000. So in which I raised, my parents gave me some money, my aunt and uncles gave me money, my friends. So I kind of bootstrapped the company from there. And then on the other hand, we were fighting Amazon tooth and nail to say, hey, look, we're a legit company. We're making legit products. I know we haven't shipped it out yet, but look at our purchase order. This is our tracking number for the shipment that's coming from on ocean. And we have inventory coming, and they didn't really care. They were just like, look, we'll unfreeze your account. We'll lift the hold on your account once you ship the inventory. And once the inventory has been delivered, to every single person. And we had, at the time, I think 60,000 equated to, I don't know, maybe like 500 people. I don't know.
Yeah, because I was going to say, how much were they selling for? Like $50?
At the time, they were selling for $80.
Oh, wow.
$80, yeah.
Awesome.
$79.99.
Very nice.
So it was a great, awesome. It was like a wow experience, and then it was like immediately up, immediately down. It was like, wow, we got a bunch of sales, and then when we got turned off, it was like, and we got turned off for 45 days. So in those 45 days, we lost millions of dollars. I mean, at least, because we went from being number one on Amazon to on like the 5th or 6th page. In that 1 month period, that's how fast China moves. Is that like we literally went from number one listing on the number one page, number one ranked, to like, not ranked. But at the time, when we got the products in finally, we were also selling through our website. So we were pushing, like we had a lot of people requesting our products, so we would just say, send them messages, hey, go to windpouch.com, go to windpouch.com. Our Amazon account is shut off right now, so go to windpouch.com. So we're taking also pre-orders to our website. So we're kind of trying our best to redirect as much traffic as we could through our website, which wasn't a lot, because a lot of people wanted to go to Amazon to buy on Amazon.
Because they trust Amazon.
Right, exactly. They didn't trust.
And like in Amazon's defense, like that's pretty cool of them that they, it sucks because it was your business and it was legit, but it is good to know that they are trying to weed out fraudulent products and stuff like that.
No, absolutely. And honestly, that experience created a much deeper relationship between us and Amazon. And for anybody out there who's ever worked directly with Amazon, whether it's Amazon seller or Amazon vendor, you know that it's very tough to get a hold of somebody, especially on the phone, that actually knows what they're doing or talking about through, with back office like seller kind of inventory, anything like that. So majority, when you're communicating with Amazon seller or vendor, you're dealing with them, or you're dealing with Amazon through email. It's never with phone. But now we have access to, we have our own account manager now, because we've hit this rank in Amazon where, once you hit a certain revenue, they appoint you like your own account rep, where you can reach them by phone and you can get things done like within a phone call. Whereas back in the day, you would have to send an email and you would have to wait 24 to 48 hours, or sometimes even up to a week, for them to for somebody to read the email, because Amazon's so busy, and make that one change, like whether it's a price or a picture or whatever it is. So when the products finally came in, a few more things went wrong. So Amazon's order to us was, you have to ship all the inventory out, and all of the tracking numbers must say delivered, right? And so it was kind of a two-step process for us. So we ended up shipping all of our products. We shipped it out, and at the time we used USPS, so like US Post Office, not UPS. And they ended up losing a full container, or like a full, like, I don't know what you call those. It was like delivery buckets. It was like maybe 100 WindPouches.
Wow.
And so that's why a process that should have taken only a week, because we were doing priority shipping, 2-day shipping. It ended up taking 45 days to get turned back on, because USPS took literally about 27 days to locate the missing packages and redirect them. Like, I think they went to like Miami or something. I don't know. They got lost, and that's why we no longer use them.
Yeah. Thanks, government.
Yeah, thanks, government. But we no longer use them. We use UPS
thanks,
now.
Obama.
I know, right? They need more. They need a bigger budget. But they were cheaper, and
yeah.
And UPS was significantly more, but the money that we lost, and I guess from Amazon and more customers, it didn't go hand in hand. I mean, we lost a lot of money. So when we finally got everything delivered, 45 days later, we got turned back on. But like I said, by the time we got turned back on, I mean, there was
already competitors on there and stuff.
Many competitors.
Wow.
So at that time, I had to really sit myself back down and was like, wow, look, you had this explosive growth for a little bit, and now what? You have a lot more competitors online. What do you do? So I decided, well, at first they were not in the US, they were only in Europe. Now we have competitors in the United States, but they're mainly online. Well, where else can I go? And I was like, well, let's work on retail. There's nobody in retail shops. They're not selling this product in Dick's Sporting Goods, Bass Pro Shops, Walmart, Target, any of the outdoor outfitter stores. So we started contacting, really cold calling all of these outdoor stores, getting their buyers' email addresses. And this is where the entrepreneurial spirit came in, because this is where we had a list of, I think 500 to 800 like retailers in the United States, mom and pop stores to big REI. We were just calling them, hey, what is your buyer's email address? And this just became a process. We had like 4 people calling every day, making a list, and we would send out a mass email to them.
Would there be hesitation sometimes, like, hey, why do you want this or whatever?
No, actually. Well, out of the hundreds, maybe like 1. But
really, so most of the time, people are like, "Oh yeah, sure, our buyer's email is this."
Right, exactly.
But you just have to write the right questions.
Right. So the way that we found to be most effective was we don't ask for the owner's email address or anything, because every outfitter or retail shop has a designated buyer, and that buyer's sole job is to find products that are going to be successful in their stores. And so it's not uncommon to ask for a buyer's email address. It's not like you're asking for their personal phone number. Like, you're sending them an email to show them a new product that could potentially do well in their store. So essentially, the way I look at it is we're helping them, and we did. We ended up being in over 450 retail shops across the United States. And so it wasn't, we didn't have a lot of pushback for that. And
that's awesome.
We found out that they were actually looking for it, because a lot of people were coming into their stores like, hey, where can we find this product? We saw this online.
Wow, that's cool. So like, obviously, like you said, a lot of these videos that people created went viral, like showing, oh, it's so easy. You fill up the bag with air and then you sit, right. And everyone's just like, where do I buy this? I want this now. This seems so easy and I want it. But like no retail places in America were carrying it. So y'all were pretty much like the number one, as far as retail goes. You were in stores and none of the competitors were.
No, yeah, exactly. So we found out from a lot of the retailers, they had reached out to Lamzac, which was over in the Netherlands, but they were just so busy with their own like European, Asian orders that they could not handle United States orders, like US orders as well. They were just so overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. And so that was a really, that opened up a huge market for us. So we kind of tapped into that, and we grew our brand through online marketing. We started doing events like music festivals to really kind of grow our brand out there. And then we implanted our product and brand inside of mass retail. We got our products into, like, for a limited time, into Target. At one point we were talking like JCPenney's, Home Depot, and Costco. And then we currently are in about 450 small retail shops across the United States. We're currently on Amazon. And we had a viral video of ours, which was pretty cool. Uploaded to YouTube by a video vlogger named Neistat. I don't know if you've ever heard of Casey.
No, I'm not. No, I'm just kidding. I was literally about to ask you about that. I was like, when I saw that on Casey's video, yeah. I freaked out because I knew Austin was working with you guys on the launch and everything with his marketing company, and so like it was exciting for me because I was a huge Casey Neistat fan. One of my favorite people on YouTube. And when I saw that you guys had sent him a WindPouch and unboxed it and like used it in the video, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so sick.
Dude, oh my gosh, we literally sent it to every Instagram influencer. I mean, we found their P.O. box or wherever it was, and Casey was, fortunate enough, gracious enough to feature our product on his mail time, where he opens mail from his viewers or his fans. And
companies are trying to hack like you guys, right. Of course.
And everybody thought we paid him and to do it, because we generated like I think 15, 20 million views on this. Wow. And it was it was honestly like our own viral video. We had so many orders the next day. It was kind of like the repeat of Amazon again.
Yeah.
It let everyone in the world know who we are. We started getting calls from all over the world. It wasn't just the United States. We had distributors from every continent, and it was a great. And after that, we resent Casey like another 20 WindPouches just to be like, thank you. Like, if you need anything else. He never responded back. We never actually talked to Casey. It was kind of like, hey, we wrote him a nice letter. We had this like letter that we wrote to everybody, like, hey Casey, hey Ryan, or whatever influencer we were sending it out to, and he was the only one that did a video for us. But I think that's how Shark Tank found us. And leading up to that story, which is even crazier, this whole time, I was just living on a high. Like, this was by far the largest project or largest product launch or just furthest I've ever gone as an entrepreneur. I've just been learning the warehousing industry, learning the shipping industry, learning the prototyping industry, because in the past we had just imported products that had already been made, but I was getting experience learning the build of materials. Like every product has a build of materials where it's like either 10 or 100 materials that are broken down into costs, and I was learning so much. I was having so much fun, and then Shark Tank calls or one of the producer calls, or he emails first, and I'm like, this is a scam. This is not real. And his name was Max. He was actually the executive producer, but at the time I just kind of ignored it because I was like, man, I think this might be a scam. But he calls me and finds my number somehow and calls me. He's like, hey, look, I'm Max, and I'm one of the executive producers for Shark Tank, and I would love to learn more about your product and your company, and I'd love to see where you guys are at and possibly maybe get you guys on the show. And so things went from 0 to 100 like really quick after that. They contacted us late, I think July or August of 2016, and we were supposed to film like that. So they do they were filming for season 8, and they do one bulk filming in the end of July. So I had missed that one, but they had a last filming, a bulk filming in I think September. So at the time it was, October. So at the time it was like end of July, early August, and I had like 2 months or like maybe month and a half to really prepare, send my pitch in, do everything, and really get ready for this airing or this filming. So, and usually like with Shark Tank, you have to go and audition, but I guess I was one of the fortunate ones that they actually approached us. So like 50% of the process I got to completely skip out on. And it was...
Because a lot of people are auditioning kind of like American Idol or something where it's like they're hoping, even if they don't get through, most of the time if you're featured on Shark Tank, you're going to get an investor anyways, because they're going to see you on TV, right, or whatever's going to happen. Like good things happen to people who get on Shark Tank regardless of if they get a deal with one of the sharks or not.
Correct. Yeah, so we actually moved very quickly. Like within the next like couple days, they had me send like a very raw pitch, like right out of 15, or it was like a less than minute and a half pitch, kind of like the typical, hi, my name is George and I'm seeking $500,000 in exchange for 13%, that type of pitch, and written out, and they kind of re-edited it for me. And I sent in a video. They wanted to see like my energy. They wanted to see kind of like my, I guess, I don't know, like on tape performance or
because if you're just super awkward, like they don't want you on the show.
Right. Or you have to be either very good or very bad. It's a television show. So they're like, you either got to be high energy or you got to like suck. And if you suck, we're just going to put you on there to pretty much be laughed at. They don't. They didn't exactly tell me that, but they kind of.
It's kind of obvious.
It's kind of obvious. It's a reality television show. So they were like, be high energy. What you think is high energy, do 10 times that. Because when you think you're being high energy or extremely like exuberant or whatever, like you're not. So do 10 times that.
Yeah.
So
definitely. That's totally the case, even especially with audio, because sometimes I'll record my little intros where I'm like, hey guys, what's up? Blah, blah, blah. But then I re-listen to it, I'm like, I sound like I'm dying. Like, right. I sound like I'm depressed.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey guys, what's up? This is, whatever. And that's why so many YouTubers will be like, what's up guys? This is Andrew today, blah, blah, blah. Because on camera, like, you lose a lot of that, even though you think you're being high energy.
Yeah.
People are used to seeing lots of high energy, so when you come off just as like normal self,
exactly,
it's low energy to the camera or whatever. So you had to like get ready for all that kind of stuff, and then what?
So I sent in my video. Went to Piedmont Park. We filmed a video. We filmed a demonstration video. We sent it in, and they were like, "Look, this looks great," but then we had to start going through due diligence process, which was you had to open pretty much everything up. You had to sign like I remember it was like a 21-page, like 50-page, like everything from signing your life away to Sony, ABC, Shark Tank. I mean, you're pretty much like giving up all your rights to be on the show. And
as far as like not being able to like sue them, or
right,
what
sue
kind of
them,
rights?
like you can't talk about it. You pretty much couldn't do anything. Like you couldn't let people know you were on it besides like your company, anything like that. There were just a million rules that
Gotcha.
I don't remember. So
Yeah.
I'm probably breaking one of them.
Well, hopefully this doesn't get taken down, but I doubt it. But so once you got to the taping and everything, didn't you say like they gave you like a massive budget for like daily like eating and all that kind of stuff?
So when they actually flew me out, well, let me talk about the due diligence process first. So that was a huge process. This is where you open because I'm sure viewers are kind of interested in the whole behind the scenes process, because I definitely was. But you pretty much have to open up complete company financials. You have to show them like all your patents, like is this really your product? You have to they kind of send their lawyers in, kind of dissect your company, dissect your business and everything, like all your intellectual property, and they determine like, all right, if you're going on the show, you're not infringing on somebody else's design patent or another company. Like Shark Tank's not going to get sued because you went on Shark Tank promoting WindPouch, but you were actually like taking somebody else's idea or something like that. Mm-hmm. So after we cleared all of that, they ended up booking me a flight out to Culver City, California, which is pretty much Hollywood. It's in LA. But that's where we filmed. We filmed in Culver City, like 5 minutes from Hollywood. But we go out there and they fly you out. I think I was out there for 5 days. They flew me out 2 days before the taping, and I stayed 2 days after the taping. So I think like about 5 or 6 days. And
what was the reason for after the taping? Just in case they needed you again or something?
Right.
Gotcha.
Right, yeah. Because the thing is, they had such a large window because they had so many companies out there or so many entrepreneurs out there to film. And when you go out there, they literally don't know your film time until like literally the hour before or like the day before. So you could be filming on the first day, you could be filming on the second day, you could be filming on the latter 2 days. They don't really know because every taping is different. Like something might happen, a prop, things happen all the time on sets. So that's how they explained it to us. So we went out there the first day. They gave us like I think like a $600 a day per diem, where I mean they pay for your hotel, they pay for your flight, but you also get like a bunch of money to go out and enjoy Hollywood, Uber around, eat a bunch of good food. So I just visited some friends out there. Went to Santa Monica Pier, just kind of did the tourist thing, had a great time. Kind of tried to find some zen because I was pretty nervous.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I was pretty nervous. I knew my pitch, from like the back of my hand, but it was just.
And we're like a lot of people too, they get kind of shamed on Shark Tank when they go on there, especially like Mr. Wonderful will come on and ask them a bunch of questions about their business as far as numbers, and when people don't know them, it just seems like you don't know what you're doing or whatever. And so were you nervous about that, or you pretty much knew your business inside and out? You weren't really worried about the numbers and stuff like that?
Yes, well, I knew my numbers very well. We did a bunch of mock pitches. Like I had a couple mentors who were mentoring me through the process. I gave like probably 5 or 10 VC pitches, like pseudo pitches in my office here in Chamblee, Georgia, in front of like my company, in front of a couple mentors that I had. So I actually reached out to 3 or 4 different people that I knew went on Shark Tank and got a deal. So I reached out to the CEO of Spikeball. I reached out to the CEO of, he works at the Tech Village. His name is Bruno. He did I forgot what it's called. Cycloramic. It's the iPhone app where it was like an older app, but it worked for iPhone 5s where it would vibrate your phone and it would take a 3D panoramic video or picture of you. It would like just spin. And he went on Shark Tank.
Because it vibrated?
Yeah, because of a vibrating like repetition. And he got a deal with Mark. So I went to there, I had a lunch with him and kind of, he pretty much walked me through kind of the whole process of like what to expect, pretty much. So I was pretty prepared for it. It didn't really change. I mean, he went like 3 years before I did, but not much had changed. So I was pretty prepared for it. But you still are nervous.
Yeah, of course.
For anything big like that.
But like you mentioned before that you definitely wanted Mark Cuban though. That was like your main. Yes,
because of the fact that I wanted him as a mentor. Not really for the money. At the time, we really didn't even need the money. We didn't really need investors. But I wanted him to kind of be a mentor, be a source of reference if I ever needed it. But at the end of the day, if it didn't work out with Mark, I would have taken anybody, because I mean, any of those sharks were well qualified. And who knows? I mean, just because I wanted Mark, maybe Mark's busy. He's a billionaire. Mm-hmm. And maybe he wouldn't have been the best. Maybe Damon would have been the best. Maybe Damon could have been a guy who I called every day, or Robert or Lori or whoever, or even Kevin. So yeah. I was really open. Like I wanted Mark, but I wasn't gonna leave the show without having somebody, right? I mean, I would have taken, I guess, anybody at the time. And when I was out there the day before the show, they take you on set, and they let you see kind of where you're standing. You know, they have this big X on the ground where you kind of walk down the hallway where you hear the dun 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 dun. Except when you're actually walking down, it actually doesn't have the music, so it's very weird. But
it's just completely quiet.
It's completely quiet. So they
it's not like when you're watching the show, you have this idea that it's like some fancy penthouse kind of situation. Like it almost looks like
almost the complete opposite. But
yeah,
yes.
yeah. I'm trying to think of the movie where it was like this. I cannot for the life of me think of what I was thinking of. But it's like you walk down like a long hallway and then you're in this big room and that's like the penthouse suite or something.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like when you're watching the show. But like you said, it's like in a dirty old warehouse or something.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, it's just, literally, it's just this big warehouse, and they literally build a room in this warehouse, and there's nothing nice in the warehouse except for like the set, you know, where the sharks sit, and you know, your display area, and then the little hallway where you walk down.
Was that like depressing? You're like, oh, it's not really real.
Yeah, it was underwhelming. I was like, oh my god, I'm on the set, and then you get out there, I was like, whoa, okay, well.
Is there even like does the set have a ceiling, or
No,
when you
it
look up,
doesn't.
it's like a warehouse ceiling?
Yeah, it's a warehouse ceiling. If
That's
you look
so
up,
funny.
it's just like little, you know, iron or steel beams and stuff, like air conditioning, like
It's so
AC
funny.
ducts and stuff.
It is so hilarious. Yeah, I've been on a couple of sets, and it is weird how you're like, the camera only needs to capture what it needs to capture. It never has to look at the
Right.
ceiling. So why would we build some artificial ceiling? Just for fun? Like, no, we don't need that. It's under the budget. We don't need
Exactly.
it. That's hilarious. So when you actually like got to the taping and all that, you said it was a little nervous, a little weird. It's all quiet, but you did get some offers, of course.
Yeah, so you're not actually, so I was actually one of the last ones to pitch, which made it even more nerve-wracking, because you're in a room with all these entrepreneurs and you see one go and they come back, or you see them go and they don't come back because they don't let you talk to the people that went on, to kind of keep that suspense. They want very natural, raw emotion. Like if you just completely like freeze up on stage, that's what they want. You know, they want real live emotion, right? So it was nerve-wracking seeing one company go, or one person go, and then like you're like one of the last ones, and you're not supposed to see the sharks or see the set after the first day. But the day I was going to go film, because my product needed to be inflated, and like no one on the set knew how to properly inflate it, or had trouble, they took me on while there was another company pitching. So I got to see all the sharks out there. I got to see all the the television monitors, and you know, I got to see that, and so that kind of eased my nerves a little bit. So I inflated the WindPouches right before I went on, and instead of taking me back to the other building where all the entrepreneurs were, they actually kept me in the same building where they were filming, and I got to hear the whole pitch and hear the company go on before me. So I was a little bit more relaxed after that. And when they were like, hey, you know, you're up next. And so I was like, wow, you know, this is it. So I started doing some breathing exercises, and like 16 really deep, you know, breaths, and just close my eyes and just try to relax as much as possible. And as soon as they, you know, they were like, they counted down like 3, 2, 1, and the doors open. And when it opens, there's a camera that points at you that kind of like, it's on like a little cart that like rolls with you, and you're just walking down. And as soon as those double doors open, like I walked to the X and immediately gave my pitch, you know. And as soon as I started the pitch, all the sharks were like smiling, you know, back to me. They were very welcoming. So that really eased up my nerves a lot. And really after that, I think I crushed it. I mean, I didn't stutter at all. I was very confident when I was in there. I felt like I was at home. I spoke to them as if they were my friends. And I kind of just really took the situation and owned it, kind of.
That's
It
awesome.
was a pretty cool feeling. Because and later after that, I've done like public speaking where I haven't done as well, but in that instance, like I like it was great.
You crushed it.
Yeah,
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. So, when you were on the show, you were seeking, like you said, you didn't really necessarily need the investment money. So how did you come on, like, to decide like what percentage of your company you wanted to give up or whatever if an investor wanted to come on?
We knew that it was going to be a bargain, so we wanted to start low. So we went in there with an evaluation of $500,000 for 13%. And we were willing to go up to 20% for $500,000. So we knew that we kind of gave that 7% cushion to like for negotiation because we knew from watching
And how
all
did
the
you come up
episodes.
with that? So obviously, if you're saying 13%, $500,000, that's a pretty big evaluation for your company. How did you guys settle upon the evaluation?
So at the time when I went on the show, we had already done $1.8 million in sales in the last, I think at that time it was 8 months.
Wow.
And we were projected to do $3.5 million by next year because we had not tapped into any mass retail shops at the time. We also were limited to just United States. We hadn't even tapped into Canada or other parts, other countries.
Yeah.
There were other territories that we were looking to open. So we evaluated our company at really just where we were at, where we thought we were going to be at in 2018.
In your pitch, did you mention any of the like competitors that were out there, or were you kind of just like...
Right. Yeah. So so when I went out there, I gave my pitch. Lori and Robert came up. They wanted to sit on it. So Lori and Robert came up. They sat on one of my WindPouches that I had inflated. They were bouncing up and down, having a great time. Kevin really liked it. So the sharks on the panel, right? So they alternate sharks. So who was on the panel from the left was Mark, Barbara, Kevin, Lori, and Robert. So Damon wasn't on the show, and none of the other like guest sharks were on the show. So that was the lineup. That was.
Did you know that Damon wasn't going to be there?
No.
So Mark could have like potentially not been there.
Right. He
But
could
he's
have not.
pretty. But he's pretty typically on there.
He's pretty much always on there.
Gotcha.
But yeah, Damon actually wasn't on there, which I was surprised. But it was okay, But Kevin really liked the product. Barbara really hated the product and hated me for some reason. I don't know if she just hated me because Kevin liked me, and I think they have like an unspoken rule as a shark, whereas like if Kevin can't be the shrewd, guy on the, shark on the show, somebody has to take his place as being like the mean one, right?
Okay.
So
I
she
see
was
that.
really ragging on me the whole entire time. She said I was a terrible, she said I was a terrible entrepreneur. She said she wouldn't invest into me. Like she just didn't like me, and I was like, "Dang, Barbara, I really liked you on the show, but now you're really pissing me off." So it was cool. But I mean, so Lori and Robert came up and sat on the WindPouch. They're bouncing up and down, and then that's when the questions started happening. They really enjoyed it. Lori wanted to give me what I was asking for, but she wanted 20%. So she wanted the $500,000, but she wanted 20% of the company because she thought that 13.5 or 13% wasn't enough for what she was trying to do or where she could put the product. She wanted to take it on QVC, but I didn't tell her at the time, but we were already like in talks with QVC. Like we really didn't need her for that. So I didn't, and that's why when she offered me an additional $500,000, which made her offer total to $1 million, because she was going to give me $500,000 as the investment, and she was also going to open up a credit line of $500,000 for inventory purchases only, right? So
Which is kind of what you guys needed.
right.
Gotcha.
Right, we could have used it exactly. So, pretty much her offer was $1 million for what we were offering for what we were seeking. So that while that sounded good, I didn't really jump on that. She was the first shark to make an offer. She literally made it within the first 2 to 3 minutes of me being there. So I thought it was very early, especially when these pitches last as long as an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Really?
Yeah, you only see a 10-minute segment, but that is really broken down. I mean, like mine lasted for about I don't really remember, like maybe an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. It wasn't that long, but they tell you that pitches can go for upwards of 2 hours. However long the sharks grill you.
Because the sharks, I mean, they are actually investing their money and all that kind of stuff, right? It has nothing to do with the show inflating anything.
Yeah, I think so. I think that it's a little bit of both. I think they're doing it because they really want to know because there are companies on there where the sharks are very interested in investing into and actually want to invest into. And I think for the most part, they take the opportunity to be curious. Because if I was in their situation, you're literally being handed ideas on a silver platter. Mm-hmm. You're having, they might not all be the best ideas, but every entrepreneur knows, especially on their level, that it's a numbers game, right? It's, you hear 100 bad ideas to hear the one good idea, right? And for them, I think it's
and
that.
when they hear like, wow, we've already done $1.8 million in the past few months or whatever, their ears kind of perk up like, what's going on here? I want to know more about this segment or whatever.
Exactly.
Interesting.
We had the numbers to prove our growth and where we were going. So
you didn't accept Lori's offer. You're kind of like, okay.
But I politely, and a lot of entrepreneurs do that. I watched a lot of episodes, and they were like, "Well, Lori, I really appreciate your generous offer, but I haven't heard from any of the other sharks yet. I would like to hear from the other sharks, at least their opinions or you know, any knowledge that they can give me or offers. And she understood that, but Barbara hated it. She was like, so you're just not going to take her $1 million offer? She doubled it. You're not going to take it? Wow. I cannot ever invest into an entrepreneur that cannot make a decision on their feet. I was like, Barbara, thank you, but I mean, I'd like to hear your offer. Well, she was like, my offer is I'm out because I don't like you, or I don't want to invest in you. I was like, all right, that's fine. You know, well, Kevin, you know, Mark, I haven't heard from you. Like, say something, brother. Say something, please. Please say something, Mark, please. Because he was pretty quiet at the time. He was thinking a lot. But Kevin really liked it. He gave me what I wanted for it. He wanted he wanted to give me $500 for the 13%. So he was giving me exactly. He was like, George, let's close the deal now. I'm going to give you exactly what you asked for. I'm not even going to bargain with you. 13% is cool with me. I have a wedding. He has like a collection of wedding companies, and he thought that this product would be a really great like wedding seating, like gift item or something that could fit into his like wedding portfolio. And so I was like, well, I still hadn't heard from Robert or Mark yet. And this is where the questions of competitors started coming up. So this is where they started grilling me a little bit more. And so Robert was like, well, I think I saw a commercial about this like on television. Was that your company? Was that you? I was like, well, no, we haven't done any television ads, so that might have been a competitor. So he was like, okay, well, talk to me about your competition. Where are you at right now with competitors? And then I was honest with him. I said, look, you know, we had tremendous growth the first month on Amazon. We did $50,000-$60,000 within the first couple of days, got shut off, the whole spiel. And he was like, wow. And then where are you at now? I was like, well, we're on like maybe the second page or maybe the bottom of the first page now. And we're still doing well. We're probably doing like $20,000-$25,000 a month, but not $60,000 a day.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so he was like, wow, that's a pretty big decrease. So where are you making your revenue right now? Where are you creating revenue? So we're saying, well, because online kind of had way too much competition, because it's so easy for somebody just to post a picture of a product on Amazon and compete with us, we decided to go the harder route, but the more non-crowded route, which was retail, right? Our margins are lower, but we're occupying an unoccupied space right now. You know, we want to be the brand in all the Dick's Sporting Goods, REI, Walmarts. And then we started doing events like trade shows and things like that to promote our brand and to make sales. And they, as entrepreneurs, which I understand, and I understood this fact too, they didn't like that. They saw that this product was an online product. They wanted us to compete better online, and we weren't. We were, to them, I guess the way I pitched it, maybe I made it sound like we were giving up on online, which wasn't the case, but online was tough. You know, it was getting tougher.
Of course.
It was getting tougher by the day. And where we were really winning was retail and events. And where I was winning was like, you know, do I keep pushing for something that I'm having so much pushback with? And we're not completely giving up online, but why not take some of our effort and double down on where we're winning, like retail, right? Creating the structure in retail. So some of the sharks understood it, some of them didn't, especially Mark. Mark did not understand it. Mark really didn't like that idea. He knew in retail, like your margins are just cut in half or more than in half. You know, we were selling for $80 online. We were making the product for, you know, $20, $25. We were making hefty margins. But when you go into retail, you're selling it, you know, if they have to sell it for $80, you have to sell it to them for $40. And on top of that $40, you have to give them what's called a co-op fee. And also like all these like fees that go into it, right? And then you have to pay for shipping to them. So essentially you might be selling it to them for $38, $37, $35, right? But you're doing more. You're not necessarily doing more volume, but you're doing a steady volume. You know, they give you commitment orders. You can build out a structure of purchase orders over time, because big companies and big businesses or retail shops will give you future orders, right? So 6 months from now, I'll need 1,000 WindPouches or 10,000 WindPouches, right? So you can kind of build a revenue stream or a plan out through that, where online is just kind of like it comes as it comes type deal. So Mark really didn't like that. Robert ended up dropping out because he told me, I think he said it just wasn't a product that he knew a lot about, that he really didn't think that he could really benefit besides capital, and he wanted to give us more than just capital or any company that which I thought was extremely fair, and I'm really grateful for Robert giving me that knowledge and a little bit of his wisdom. But he dropped out. Lori, because I didn't take up her initial $1 million offer, And after she found out that we had a lot more competitors, she took back her offer and ended up dropping out. And Barbara hated me, so she was already out. I think she was the first one to be out. And at that time, it was just Kevin and Mark. And Mark...
Were you bummed when Lori took back her offer?
Not really. Maybe a little bit. I mean, not bummed like she took back her offer, but I was bummed like, oh gosh, we're down to 2 sharks. Like I'm 2 strikes away from being out. You know, that's kind of how I was thinking about it.
Yeah.
So when Mark dropped out, so it was actually funny, like caught up in the moment, like, you know, they're throwing you numbers, you know, it's just in the heat of the moment. Like I was literally going like brain overload, right? Because I was thinking like, at the same time I was trying to listen to them, at the same time I was trying to like strategize in my head, like how to counter their offers, like counter like what I wanted out of that. Because where I thought the pitch was going was completely not where it was going, right? It was kind of like spiraling in a different direction, which I knew could happen, but it's one of those things you can't really prepare for because it's like infinite ways it could go.
Yeah.
So my mind was like going in a million different miles, a million different directions, trying to figure it out. And when Mark dropped out, he was like, George, I'm just sorry, I can't do this because I just don't agree with the direction you're going with. I love the product, I love your company, I love you, I like you, but I don't agree with where you're going with this retail. I see it as a very hard road ahead.
So Mark dropped out?
He did. And when he dropped out, because it's funny, I went on the show like not really wanting Kevin. Kevin was like my hated shark, but actually he was very nice to me. So when I was on the show, when Mark dropped out, I had completely forgot about Kevin. And I thought like Kevin had already dropped out. So when Mark dropped out, like I was like, oh my God. I was literally about to turn around and walk off the show because I thought like it was over. I thought everybody was out. But then as soon as like I was about to turn around, Kevin was like, well, all roads lead back to Mr. Wonderful. You know, and like his little pitch, you know, like you got me now, so what's up? What are we gonna do? I was like, oh, thank God, I got Kevin. I was like, yes. Like I was like, well, yeah, of course I'm gonna take Kev. You know, whatever. I'll do it just to, you know, air on the show or whatever. You know, whatever the case is. So Kevin was like, look, I've given you what you wanted, but now since I'm the last shark, I'm gonna have to do 500,000 at 20%. Right, so up for the 13. So I was like, yeah, not bad. You know, I was gonna take that anyway. So I acted like I was like, oh no, you know, oh man, you know, I try to, you know, give some drama in there to make it a little bit more interesting. But right as I was about to say yes to Kevin, I tried to give a little bit of a pause in there to kind of add some dramatic effect because I really wanted to air. You know, they were like, look, you got to be exciting on film. So I was about to say yes, and as soon as I was about to say yes, Mark goes, George, you know what? I'm back in. I was like, what? And all the sharks were like, woo, like, whoa, what? And I was even like shocked. I was like, wow. He was like, well, because he was like, look, didn't you say you had a new product out? I was like, yes, I have this air mattress. So I took the air mattress out, like laid it down. Mark was like, all right, well, I want to try this air mattress because I like that air mattress. I want to see where it goes. So this was a prototype that we had just made. It literally got shipped in from our manufacturers overseas in China like 2 days before the airing, right? So Mark literally comes up to it, right? And this is a prototype. Like I never like tested it before this. It was like the first working prototype of this air mattress. Mark's very big. He's like 6'2", 250 pounds at least. He's way bigger than he looks in the TV shows. And he comes up to it and he literally just like plops down into it, like literally does a trust fall into it. And my heart drops because I'm like, oh my God, he's about to pop this thing. Like this thing's about to burst. He's so big, you know, like I don't know what's about to happen. And he hits the mattress so hard that it literally like, nobody else knew it, but I heard it. It ripped from the bottom. And I have the prototype at my house. It like ripped. He plops on it, it catches him. It doesn't burst or anything, but it rips like from the bottom. It's like rip. And he plops on it, he's like, wow, I just want to see how durable it is. And it's pretty durable. So I like it. All right, I'm back in. I want to renegotiate. I'm sitting there like sweating bullets. Like, I'm like, oh my God, this could have been so bad. This could have been like terrible. And so like now I'm renegotiating with Mark, and Mark's like, look, you know, I want to give, you know, I want to invest into your company, but look, I can't give you what you're offering for. I can give you the 500,000 for 20%. And you know, that is my final offer. And I don't want you to look at Kevin. I don't want you to look at any other shark. I just want you to train your eyes on me. And I want you just to tell me right now, you have about 5 seconds. And I literally was like, and Kevin was like, no, George, no, look back here. No, don't let him do this to you. He's like, he's not going to drop out. Trust me, I know him. And then, they start like fighting. It's pretty funny. It's like, all right, Kevin, you think you know me? I'm going to drop out on this guy. I'm going to drop out on George. And he was like, 5, 4, 3. And I was like, all right, Mark, look. I was like, wait, stop, Mark. Wait, hold on. Let me give me some time to think. He's like, no, you don't have any time. And finally I was like, all right, Mark, look, we got a deal. Let's do it. I was like, we got a deal. So he got up, it was the whole handshake. He talked to me for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. We talked about the company, where it was going to go. He thought it was going to be really good with his stand-up paddleboard company. He gave me some kind of advice as an entrepreneur. He told me I was going to be in contact with him. He would give me his email address, and anytime I needed help or needed to reach out to him, I could. He essentially would be a mini mentor, or like a mini investor, mentor type guy. And so after the show, that was it. Afterwards, I was still hyped. They take you to this back room where they ask you a bunch of questions. After the show, they're like, well, how do you feel after the show? How do you feel like you did? And this is where kind of like the after pitch, where you're in the back. So I did that, and I went back. I couldn't even eat. I was so hungry. I didn't eat all morning, but I couldn't eat. I was so excited. Called everyone I knew, told them about it.
That's awesome.
I think I legally couldn't have, but I didn't really care. I just told everybody. I was like, yo, you got a deal. It's awesome with Mark. And then Mark's lawyer came into my little RV area where I was hanging out at, and kind of talked to me a little bit, kind of told me what they were going to look for, the timeline and everything. And so they were like, we're going to reach out to you within 2 weeks or a week, and the due diligence process is probably going to take anywhere from 3 to 6 months. It could even take up to a year sometimes. I was like, okay. And so they were just like, be on the lookout for our email, stuff like that. So I was like, all right, cool. So after that, I just went back home, hung out with a couple friends in the LA area, took a flight back to Atlanta, and that was a pretty incredible journey.
That's awesome, man. So that was last year, a year ago, right?
Last October. Yeah, last October.
And did your pitch air on TV or
Not
no?
yet.
Okay, so you're still waiting.
Still waiting, yes.
Okay, because I was curious, because I actually I looked it up. I was trying to find it, and I was like, I can't find it anywhere. So I didn't know if it actually did air or not.
No, so we have until next March to air. So
Gotcha.
they film the episodes a year and a half to a
Wow.
year and a half out. So the pitches that you see live on Shark Tank are filmed usually anywhere from 8 to 18 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so I actually have a friend who, I'm not going to mention the product on the podcast right now because of all the legal stuff I know that they've signed, but they actually had a similar thing where Shark Tank reached out to them. They're going to be flying out very soon to do the pitch and all that kind of stuff. And they have, it's kind of in a similar segment of your product. It's kind of like an outdoor physical product.
Uh-huh.
And so for them, because I'm definitely going to tell them to listen to this episode because you were on Shark Tank and all that stuff. What kind of advice could you give them as far as going in, what people told you, the CEO Spike Ball or anything like that? What's your, I guess, biggest advice to someone who would be going on Shark Tank and all that kind of stuff?
The number one is the story. It's at the end of the day, it is a television show, and they have to generate views. And I would say the story. Make sure you craft your story correctly. Make sure your story it's palatable for your audience. The sharks. Make sure it has a little bit of emotional value into it. And at the end of the day, man, be bold. I think if I could do it differently, if I could go back on the show, I would not care about anything. I would just go up there and just entertain. I'd probably tell Barbara to shut up. I'd probably do something as crazy as that. Because that would have been probably something that would have guaranteed me to air. I could have just been like, all right, Barbara, you don't like me, I don't like you either. Being bold like that, not.
I wasn't gonna pick you anyways.
Right, I didn't want you anyways. I don't want to be in a bakery shop, whatever. I would have just been. I would have just taken it for what it is. I try to treat it as an actual VC pitch, and I think I forgot a little bit that it was a TV show at the end of the day, and I should have made it a little bit more entertaining because I could have definitely had. But I try to do it professionally. I try to do it as if I was giving a pitch in front of billionaires, which I was, but. I would just say, treat it as a television show. Create that entertainment value, because at the end of the day, whether you get a deal or not, because people Shark Tank air people that don't get deals, right? Because they have to air people that don't get deals.
Yeah, of
so
course.
I would say that going for the deal is not the 100% thing. I said if you're trying to guaranteed to air, I would say absolutely make your pitch, make your entire time on the show entertaining. You know, go as far as like, you know, talking back to some of the sharks, you know, making some like, think Donald Trump, man, make some like bombastic statements on there. I don't know, you know, just make it entertaining, you know, make it,
I got you.
Do something crazy.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
Do a cartwheel, do a backflip.
That's really good advice. I like that. The other question that I was going to say is, I know that you did a ton of like exposure where you were going and taking the WindPouch out to music festivals and stuff like that. And this friend that I'm speaking about, they've been trying to do a similar type of thing, going out. Was that what was the most like lucrative part of that, or did you find that it wasn't worth it, or was there other better ways of marketing such a product? Like, is someone finding your video on the internet and being like, wow, I need that product better than seeing it out in public? Or, you know, like what has been like your experience with that kind of stuff?
Well, with events generally do very well. So we do music festivals, we do trade shows, we do like RV shows, things like that. Very successfully. I mean, we make a lot of sales there, but we also have a chance to one-on-one pitch our product to people. And I think that in itself is an investment. So I don't look at, you know, paying for the transportation costs, the hotels, the vendor fees and things like that as necessarily I don't look at it as like an equal correlation for ROI. I don't see it as like, did we make money at this event or not? Like some events we profit a lot, some events we break even, some events we might lose a little bit. Mm-hmm. But you have to look at it as far as with the marketing side of it, you know, what you get back from just having people know your name. And I think that from doing all these music festivals, trade shows, I feel like our brand is solidified in the outdoor industry, in the camping industry, in the college, especially university side. We did a whole tailgate series where we made a bunch of WindPouches, different like collegiate colors, and shipped it out to their bookstores and had a huge following through that. So I would say it was a great experience. We got to go backstage with a lot of music artists. Like we sent the Chainsmokers a WindPouch. We met them at Thrival Music Festival in Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania, and we gave them a couple WindPouches. They posted it on their Instagram. We got a bunch of hits from there. I'm in contact with them. Like I have their numbers and like their managers' numbers. Same thing with Skrillex. Like we went to a lot of like like EDM festivals, like electronic dance music festivals. So a lot of the artists that I got to go backstage to meet were like EDM artists. So like
that's really cool.
Diplo, Dylan Francis, Adventure Club. So it was really great meeting them, and I think those relationships are probably the most valuable, because currently, as of right now, where WindPouch is we're getting acquired, and we're going through an acquisition right now. Are
you allowed to say who it is?
No.
I figured.
No, not yet.
But is it in the same kind of segment, or is it like a totally just like?
Well, they're a company from Europe.
Okay.
And so they're a furniture-based business, and they're looking to have a presence here in the United States. And they thought the WindPouch brand and the WindPouch products would be a great way to kind of have a head start, you know, with our warehouse operations and everything already set up. It would just be kind of like a turnkey type acquisition. So yeah, right now we're selling at a time where it's good. You know, I'm looking for a different idea, like a different product. What I realized through WindPouch was that there's a difference between a CEO and an owner. And at the time, before starting WindPouch, I didn't know that there was a difference. And reading or listening to the podcast, the Blake Mycoskie, the founder of Tom, he was on the NPR How I Built This podcast, and he talked about how he realized from starting Tom that he wasn't a CEO, that he was a founder. And the difference is that a founder creates that spark, right? A CEO is a day-to-day, you know, maintaining, putting out fires, putting in the direction of the company. But that's not me, and I realized from doing WindPouch that wasn't me. I get bored of things a little quick, and I always am looking for the next idea or the next thing. But I'm the guy where, you know, you take a product where it's never been done before, and you want it created. I'm the guy who will take that product from 0 to 1, right? The largest leap. To go from 1 to 100 is not hard, because it's already been done. You're just replicating, repeating, and making better. But the hardest step, there's a book called 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal and I think Google or something like that. But it's a book, it's the hardest to go from zero, from nothing to something, right? And I think that's me. I'd like to take ideas that have never been done before, never been created, and do that. And so I'm the guy who will stay up 16, 18 hours a day, no sleep, just grinding, a bunch of coffee and just seeing the idea through. I'm that spark. And once the idea has become a company or stable and just requires daily maintenance, then that's where kind of my interest in the product or maybe passion or whatever in the product kind of dies down a little bit. And I'm looking for that next thing. So
yeah, because you see like some guys, for example, who's the Amazon dude? What's his?
Jeff Bezos?
Yeah, Jeff Bezos. Like, I mean, obviously he could retire now and never work another day in his life, but he's that type of dude where it's like he, for whatever reason, just wants to see it. Like, I mean, how much more could you ask?
Right,
they're at the peak, they're at the pinnacle, it feels like. But I feel like he's the type of guy that's like addicted to like, how far can I push this? How and even though he was like the first initial guy that kind of got it started, I feel like he kind of would continue. But I'm more like you, where I would much rather jump. Okay, cool. We launched this. It's doing well. What else can I do now? What else can I start? Mm-hmm. And it is two very different things for sure.
It's what I realize, it's kind of like a love and hate situation. There is a case where you could be jumping too much, and there is also a case where you might not be jumping enough. So you kind of have to, and it's different for everybody. There's not a one size fit all. From what I've gathered from reading, having mentors, and just studying like entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, is that there's not like a one size fit all. It's not like one habit is going to make you a successful entrepreneur. Like, for example, the idea of like waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning or brushing your teeth or having a morning routine. While I do think that is important, and I do have a morning routine myself. I mean, Tony Robbins talks about how he has his best ideas happen at 3 or 4, 5 o'clock in the morning sometimes. And then you hear people like Warren Buffett, who goes to sleep at like 8, 9 o'clock at night and wakes up at like 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So there isn't a one size fit all. I think the most important thing is you find yourself and who you really are, because I think that's the hardest thing to do. And I think, and I'm still on the journey myself to really find out who I am and what makes me tick and what makes me, a successful, worker or entrepreneur. And Austin and I had a conversation the other day, and I didn't know this, but he told me something that was really interesting that I've kind of since a week ago, I've tried to put into effect in my life, which was just as when you're falling asleep, that there's different levels of sleep, right? There's like REM sleep, and then there's like the deep sleep where you actually get rest. But there's a process that leads up to it. There's like REM level 1, 2, 3 or something like that. Mm-hmm. But there's a process that leads up to like deep sleep where you actually get rest. Well, when it comes to focus, there's also a stepping stone to focus too. There's a process. So it's not like you're just like, sometimes you're like, man, why can't I focus? And then other times you're just like on point, like you're just focused, right? Well, from what Austin told me and what I did research on, there's actually a leading up process to it. So next time, like for me, I'm trying to train myself to think like, well, next time when I find myself in a very focused environment, like I'm just on point, like I just think clearly, everything's happening naturally, I'll try to like retake steps backwards and kind of find out, what did I do? Did I have music on or not? Was I in a quiet place or not? Was it, in the morning, or was it at night? Was it after lunch? Like trying to figure out like what kind of led me up to those steps and try to replicate that type of process so I can find that level of focus every single time. Because myself, I'm sort of ADD, I think. I mean, I find it hard to focus sometimes, or more often than not. And then there are also times where I'm just super focused, and I cannot not be focused. So, and I want to better be able to replicate, or be able to kind of on a whim, I want to focus now. Whereas if like, let's focus right now, but I can't for the next hour and a half, and I don't know why, and I just wasted an hour and a half, So I think kind of going back to what the initial topic was, just sort of as an entrepreneur, there's no like one size fit all. You really have to go out there and really just put yourself out there, and things will fall into place.
Yeah.
I didn't know about the Shark Tank thing. I didn't know about any of this, but I think really by putting yourself out there and just going for what you really believe in, like life, God, whatever you believe in, the universe will effectively push things in your direction, you'll start meeting the right people.
Yeah. Making waves, like doing something. That's even happened with this podcast. Like, even though the podcast isn't necessarily, hasn't proven itself to be a massive success by any means, like just the fact that I'm making waves and doing things. Like, for example, I have my friend Parker on, and then even when I spoke to you the other day, you're like, oh yeah, I think I actually listened to that podcast with Parker.
I did, yeah.
Which is crazy because it's like, even though that podcast with Parker, I did not expect it to lead to talking to you or whatever. And it didn't necessarily have that direct correlation, but it's crazy that even just deciding to make something, do something, create something, put something out there and be vulnerable about it is huge. Because, most people, they have this idea and they just let it sit in their brain and they never actually execute on it.
Yes.
And kind of like going back to what we were saying in the beginning with Gary Vee, he's like super big on finding your own, knowing yourself, knowing what makes you tick and what you're good at and doubling down on your strengths. And it seems like that's what you're kind of figuring out.
I am. It's been an incredible learning process. I don't think that I'm a product guy. People ask me all the time, what's next after WindPouch? And I always like to tell them, I don't know. It doesn't necessarily have to be a product. It could be a service. It could be something else. I don't think I'm a product guy. I think I'm a new experience junkie. I like experiencing new things because new things teach me new things, and what I try to do is especially with WindPouch, I try to extract as much knowledge and as much experience out of it as I can. And once I feel like I've learned enough or as much as I can, I seek the next thing. And I think that's really how, a successful entrepreneur needs to be. Just like Gary Vee says, you need to double down on your strengths. There's a lot of weaknesses that we have, but in school we're taught to improve our weaknesses. But contrary to what we're being taught in school, or what I was taught in school, everything from learning right now from successful entrepreneurs that actually have what I want. I'm sorry, but my third grade teacher doesn't really have what I want financially. But Gary Vee, Tony Robbins, a lot of the books that I'm reading, it's like, no, double down on your strengths. If you're not a clean person, if you're 27 years old, you're probably not going to be a clean person, and it's okay. If you're a real estate agent, sell one extra house a year and hire someone to clean for you. Don't try to bend yourself over, because that's when your self-confidence dies down. Man, I suck. I've been told you're not going to be successful if you're not a grade A student, if you're not a clean person, if you don't know how to fold your bed in the morning. You're never going to have your life in order if you can't take care of the small things like fold your bed, brush your teeth. You're not going to be able to handle big things, and that could be true. But in a sense, if you're good at something, if you're a all-star player at selling properties or real estate, sell one or two extra houses a year, make $15,000-$20,000 and hire a maid, hire somebody to do it for you. If you're not a good cook, don't worry about not learning how to cook unless you want to turn it into a hobby. Sell one more thing, find one more customer and hire somebody to do that for you, and work on your strengths, because I think by working on your strengths, you gain more confidence. And that's what I'm learning too, is that I try to be good at so many of the things that I wasn't good at, that it was decreasing my confidence in what I was actually good at, and it was affecting my overall entrepreneur life, as an entrepreneur. So
that makes sense. I want to wrap up pretty soon, because I know you got to get somewhere and all that stuff. And it's been a really good podcast so far. I've really enjoyed it.
I hope I was a little bit of help.
I did want to touch on something you brought up at the beginning, which was that you come from a family of immigrants. And I feel like, that's a big part of a lot of people's story, especially living in America. Our country is not that old. Right. So everyone at some point, their ancestors were immigrants here. And, I feel like it's pretty common that, especially with immigrant parents, like you said, your parents wanted you to be a lawyer, doctor, something like that, and go to college. That was the main thing. Do you think that obviously that plays a huge role in everything, but what kind of role do you feel like that played in where you are right now, and why you went to school and stuff like that? Obviously you could probably talk about it for hours, but do you think obviously viewing it as a positive, negative, struggles, or even just talking to other people out there who are maybe feeling frustrated that they're in a situation where, their parents are maybe forcing them to do something they don't necessarily feel that they want to do, or anything like that?
I'll answer the latter question, which is, I think, where I think a lot of people are experiencing right now is expectations. Expectations, because we all have goals and dreams and who we want to be, right? But then society or world or growing up happens. When we're younger, we always have dreams of being a firefighter or a police officer or a pilot or something like that. We all had a dream to do something. But in the course of growing older and life happening, we were told by, some people close to us, like friends, even family members, like, oh, well, that's not a high paying job, or that's not a sustainable, career, or that's dumb to be, to want to be an architect or a archaeologist or things like that, right? And what I would say to that is especially when it comes to people like family, like your parents, they want the best for you. There are some cases where parents, there might be parents that don't, but for the most part, your parents want the best for you. And by them telling you these things, it's a natural tendency. It comes out of caring. You are their child, and they're looking after you. They're trying to do what they think is best for you. But at the end of the day, you're on this earth. You came into this earth and into this world by yourself, and eventually one day you'll leave by yourself. And I think that's the biggest message to me, is that, and that gave me confidence to move forward or in a direction that wasn't aligned with my parents' views, because I realized that if I did what my parents wanted me to do, but in the end of the day, I wasn't happy, I wasn't satisfied, I wasn't living a fulfilled life by doing it, eventually one day when my parents are gone, what am I left with? What am I really doing something? I did it for my parents, and then when my parents are gone, and that hopefully is 20, 30 years from now, do I switch careers now that I feel not obligated to be a doctor or trying to do something else? So, it's a tough decision. It's not an easy decision by any means, but I do say take heart, take confidence in knowing that your parents want the best for you. Your friends and family, whoever it is, people that care about you because they want you to be successful. They want you to do well, right? And as a journey for an entrepreneur, you're going to have to go through some trials and tribulations. I say an entrepreneur's journey is very lonely. It's very lonely for me. There's a lot of people. I have friends, but there are times where people don't understand you, and it's not their job to understand you. It's your job as an entrepreneur to be misunderstood for quite some time. And I think that's just the rite of passage. If it was easy, everybody would do it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and right now it's kind of this sexy thing, like, oh, I'm this young hipster startup founder guy.
Right.
But it's like, you don't see the grimy side. You don't see the pull up by the bootstrap side. It's not all viral videos and, hunky dory. It's like, you got to sit down and make some hard decisions. You got to call a bunch of people and make a bunch of lists.
There's a nitty gritty. I've cried. I've stayed awake at night, staring at the ceiling multiple nights where restlessness, can't go to sleep, wondering if you're doing the right thing or not. If you should have just taken the 9-to-5 corporate job and did what everybody else is doing. And you always have those doubts, but the doubts will never go away. But I think as you grow stronger and as you grow more confident in yourself and as an entrepreneur, I think pushing those thoughts away are a lot easier, because you realize that you do it because you're passionate about it. You get enjoyment out of it. You get fulfillment out of it. How many people do we know working a typical 9-to-5 corporate job or whatever it is who are not happy? Almost all of my friends tell me that, man, I'm in this job to do something else. Like, this is just a stepping stone. I'm here for a year and I'm going somewhere else because I'm not happy here. Mm-hmm. But what they don't realize is, for most of them, it's not the job. It's the career. It's the path. It's what they're doing. And maybe the next job that they find, I'm hoping that they will find, fulfillment and meaning in what they're doing. But just like I think Ralph Waldo Emerson said, most men lead lives of quiet desperation, and that's so true. And I try to remember those type of things, and because at the end of the day, when it's just you on your deathbed, at least the way I think about it, is you got to be true to yourself. And if you Google right now, the top 10 searches for the top 10 regrets of people on their deathbed, the number one is, I should have did what I wanted to do. I should not have let other people impose their life on me, whether that been my family, my parents, other friends. I should have just been more bold. I should have made one more phone call. I should have went after the guy or girl that I really wanted to in my life. I should have went for the job or the career that I wanted to, you know? Those are the regrets that you truly have. Because at the end of your life, I mean, what else do you have to lose? Like nothing. And I think the best way to live your life as an entrepreneur is to live every day like you have nothing to lose. Because just like Steve Jobs says, like live your life as if it is the last day of your life. And even though I know that, I have a hard time doing that. So it's not an easy thing to do. It's something that I have to keep reminding myself to do. But if you live that way, eventually one day you'll be right. It will be your last day. But I think as far as what I know right now is that if and when that day comes, that I'll be able to look at myself and realize that, and then look back and say, man, I tried. I did my best. You know, whether I succeeded or failed, you know, I tried and I gave it my best shot. And I'm looking forward to what's next. That's
awesome, man. I feel like that's a big reason, like that message right there is like a huge reason why I wanted to start this podcast too. Is like to get people, like you said, sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes, you know, you feel like you're not doing the right thing, you're unsure, all this stuff, but that's natural. And I think that especially, I think my audience is mainly a lot of young people our age, and they need to hear that type of message because most people are in this job where they're like, yeah, it's cool, but like it's just a stepping stone, or yeah, I found myself in this career because I got this degree, but really I want to go into the music industry, or I want to do something, you know, bold, or I want to do something creative or whatever. And people need to hear that kind of stuff, which Absolutely. Is awesome because, like you said, at the end of the day, it's like your parents, your friends, your family, you know, that's all going to pass away. And then what do you have left? Like a bunch of regrets, and you're going to die. Like
the fact of the matter is that most people are scared, and fear drives a lot of people. Fear and greed are the two things. I mean, fear drives a lot of people, and it's hard, but just try not to let your friends or influences in your life, whoever it is, you know, it could be a TV show or whatever, a news, you know, we have so much negative news nowadays to try to ruin, you know, your outlook and your perception and your creativity on life, because life is beautiful, you know, and sometimes it takes a second to reflect and really understand and remind yourself that life is great. You know, we live in one of the best countries ever. There are people less fortunate out there, and it is your responsibility as a smart young entrepreneur to be successful, to do great things, so that eventually one day, you know, even now, to give back. You know, if you are given much, you know, like much is going to be required of you. Like you have an obligation to help and to give back, and that's why I really enjoy, and I thank you so much for having me on this podcast. And I really do hope that my message and what I share today and whatnot really helps aspiring entrepreneurs, because this nation, this country, this world was founded on people who didn't take no for an answer, who went against the grain, you know, when everybody was laughing and yelling at them and calling them names and doing all this, you know, they pushed forward and became who they are. So it's a rite of passage. It's difficult, but embrace it, because the difficulty actually becomes fun. You know, when you learn to embrace the grind and the toughness, you know, it's hard. I mean, it's not easy. I mean, I'm not saying it, but you eventually begin to love the grind. You know, eventually you begin to fall in love with it, and I think that's what matters.
That's awesome, man. I feel like that's a good place to wrap things up.
Awesome.
If people want to follow you on social media, or if they want to ask you a question or anything like that, where's the best place to reach out to you?
Sure. You can reach out to me. Best if you want to reach out to me via email. That's probably the best way. I check it frequently. You can reach me at george@windpouch.com. Very easy, George, George, at windpouch.com.
I'll make sure to write it in the description and all that too.
Cool, yeah, please, if you guys are listening, reach out to me with any of your questions. I'll try my best to answer anything. I love helping aspiring entrepreneurs, or just sharing. So
cool. And any other last words of wisdom? I feel like you ended it off pretty good.
You know, that's it. I think really you just got to get out there, just like Nike says, and just do it. You know, that's as simple as that. Just do it.
Oh yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, dude. Well, this has been really fun, and we'll see you later, everybody.
Awesome.
Boom. There it is. There we go. I want to thank George again for being on the show, sharing his amazing stories. Seriously, amazing value. I think any entrepreneur should listen to that last 30 minutes again. I know I did, and I've already had some new ideas and concepts that I'm going to be implementing into my business very soon. So definitely go re-listen to that, or share it with somebody who you think would enjoy it. But if you made it to the end of the show, hopefully you're thinking, hey, I enjoyed that. I wouldn't mind doing that again. Well, you're in luck, because I have a couple more episodes that I think you would enjoy. And George and I mentioned episode 6 with our friend Parker Stiles. And Parker is the owner of Barrington Acquisitions, a company he runs with his wife where they purchase, renovate, and sell or rent out single-family houses. And on that episode, he shared his story of how he went from being an unemployed college graduate to running a business with multiple employees that pays him while he sleeps. And that podcast was extremely informative. Parker gave a ton of practical information on how he started his company and what it takes to run a business. Still to this day, one of my favorite episodes of the podcast. So go listen to episode 6 with Parker. And another episode you'll probably enjoy is episode 15 with our friend Austin Distel. We talked about Austin on this podcast, but Austin is a tech entrepreneur. He's a travel hacker. He's a digital marketer. And he started his first business when he was in middle school. And a few years ago, his other company that he started, I think it was his second business ever, he won the Choose ATL Ultimate Job Interview, which is kind of like Shark Tank. It's a Shark Tank style pitch in front of a live audience. And he took home first place and the grand prize of $10,000. And his current project is called Entrepreneur Alliance. It's a global club for entrepreneurs with a library of trainings, weekly master classes with millionaires, an online community, and local events in many major cities. This episode is full of awesome value, so go check out episode 15 with Austin Distel. Yeah, so I think you guys will enjoy those 2 episodes. Episode 57 is coming up next with singer, songwriter, and performer Macy Todd. And I had heard of Macy because she had played a show right before my friend Alex Guthrie, who is on episode 20. And I totally missed out by not seeing her live. So when she actually reached out to me about the podcast, I was like super pumped because I'd already heard about this girl. I knew she was super talented and she's really freaking cool. And I was really happy to be able to sit down with her and talk about her music, what inspires her, our love-hate relationship with social media, and much more. That episode will be coming out early next week. So stay tuned. Wow, I'm tired. If you want to support the podcast, go to iTunes, leave me a 5-star review, or the Apple Podcast app if you're listening to this on an iPhone. I know it might just sound like, oh yeah, reviews, but they're really, really helpful for me because iTunes is the number one place to be discovered. So leaving a review helps me jump up in the ratings. And it just takes a couple minutes, and I know that you might feel like mob mentality, like, someone else will leave a review. But seriously, I think I'm up to like 49 reviews, and there's 56 episodes so far, so that's not even one review per episode. So seriously, if you like this episode, it would really mean a lot to me if you go review it. Also, if you want to follow me, you can go to my website, andrewdeitsch.com. That's Andrew, DEITSCH.com. And you can find the links to all of my social media handles and accounts. But that's all I got. Thank you guys so much for listening. It really means so much to me that so many of you guys are listening to this. There's so much momentum and positivity coming from the podcast. So I really appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you have a great weekend, and I will talk to you all on the next episode.
Mark, I haven't heard from you. Like, say something, brother. Say something, please. Please say something, Mark, please. Because he was pretty quiet.